Now we are joined by Congresswoman Julia Letlow. Good morning. Welcome back. How are you?
Hey, Brian, I'm doing well. Great to be with you. I know it's been a while.
It has been. Well, so here's the thing, though, Congresswoman. It might have to be a lot more frequent because we could very well be looking at a little bit more of my listening area being in your district.
Hey, you know what? I would love to spend more time with you, so I will count that as a positive.
Before we thank you. I appreciate that. Before we get into any of the matters at hand, have you shared any thoughts on that? Have you gone public with anything about the potential redistricting?
You know, it's in the court's hands, so no, I haven't. All I can say about it is that it's an absolute honor of my lifetime to represent the 5th District, and as long as the people would have me, I'll love to continue to serve.
Fair enough. Congresswoman Julia Letlow is our guest. All right, now let's talk about a few of the matters at hand. I do want to talk inflation before it's all said and done, but look, it's just about back to school time right now, and this is something that I think a lot of parents can look directly at you and say thank you because we have a Parents' Bill of Rights now.
That's right. Wow, what an incredible experience to have one of the first 5 bills out of the Republican majority. And it was the Parents' Bill of Rights. And, you know, Brian, I think I talked about it with you earlier. It's just about transparency. It's about building that partnership between educators and parents and making sure that parents have that coveted seat at the table when it comes to their child's education. And so I've been up here fighting for this. You know, we haven't really seen that play out in Louisiana because we have our own Louisiana Parents' Bill of Rights. It was kind of the impetus for this bill nationwide. But really, it has gotten so much traction, Brian. Thank you for giving it some exposure and light as well. But it's really been a national phenomenon. Parents are saying enough's enough. We want to make sure that we have a say when it comes to our child's education.
Well, this is one of those instances where light can be a great disinfectant, right? Once people started talking about it, this just grew all kinds of momentum. This was, a snowball rolling downhill because parents, myself included, parents started asking questions saying, what don't I know?
Right. You know, and I think the pandemic kind of brought to light for a lot of parents for the first time, they were sitting down with their children in the virtual classroom and seeing firsthand what they were being taught. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as parents, maybe they saw some things that they didn't care for, so they did the right thing. They went to their school boards, voiced their concerns. And in some states, they were turned away. They were said their voices weren't needed or wanted there. And even some were targeted by the federal government as domestic terrorists. So that's when we decided to step in, come forward with this legislation, and it's gotten a resounding yes by parents and support nationwide.
So just for clarification purposes, and like you said, we've already had one in Louisiana, so we're cool here. But
right.
Just for clarification purposes, what's the update on it?
Yeah, so it passed in the House. So we're waiting on the Senate to do the right thing, to pick it up there and take a good hard look at it. I think if you were to poll parents across the country, they would say they want this legislation to come up on the Senate side. So that's where it is. It's over in that chamber right now, and we're just praying and hoping they'll do the right thing over there.
We're talking with Congresswoman Julia Letlow. I got a couple of different topics that we're going to cover today. Can we talk a little healthcare transparency as well? You talk about a Bill of Rights for parents. Healthcare transparency, this is another area where it's what don't we know?
Yeah, exactly. So we've been working on this through the Education and Workforce Committee, and I voted on and passed several bills involving healthcare billing transparency. Brian, I hear about this wherever I go. And these bills enforce transparency in the healthcare industry, including hospital billing. That's a huge one for accurate costs, so you're not surprised, as well as pharmacy benefit managers, those PBMs that people always talk to me about. We just want honesty and transparency with consumers and pharmacies on things such as prices that are paid for each drug, total spending by healthcare plans on drugs, all while aiming to strengthen compensation disclosure requirements for pharmacy benefit managers. So this bill that we just pushed through Education and Workforce was H.R. 4508, the Hidden Fee Disclosure Act. And that will, PBMs will now have to disclose how much money they're making, selling, and giving as a rebate back to pharma. PBMs will have to be more honest going forward. I hear about it every day from my independent pharmacists. It's a real problem in our country. They have a lot of power. We just want to make sure they're being transparent.
The independent pharmacist is kind of an underserved voice or underheard voice in this whole thing when you're talking about pharmacy benefit managers. And this is something that's being attacked from a number of different angles here. Congresswoman Julia Letlow, our guest. Congresswoman, how much work are you doing coordinating with the other side? Not the other side as in Democrats. I mean, the Senate side, because I know Senator Cassidy's working hard on this too.
Yeah, he's been a champion on this as well. Hey, I'm willing to work with anybody that will help me take this on and make sure that we are doing right by our constituents and making sure that they are receiving adequate health care and also being transparent about it. And I also want to make sure that our independent pharmacists can stay in business. That relationship you build, it's just like building that relationship with your primary care provider. Your local pharmacist, you build that relationship your entire life, and I want to make sure that they can still continue to provide care for my constituents.
What's the reaction from, and I hate using this term, what's the reaction from Big Pharma?
Yeah, I think that we will all kind of have the same goal in mind. We want to work together. So, I'm sure there are some that don't like it, whenever you start to kind of dabble in their world. But again, if all we're asking for is transparency, I think that that's an overall win for everybody.
We're talking with Congresswoman Julia Letlow about a number of the things she's either working on or about to get to work on coming up on Capitol Hill. Let's talk inflation a little bit, if we could. We often talk about inflation in grand market terms. We'll hear from Wall Street. We'll hear from Fox Business. We'll hear from Bloomberg. We hear market reports all day long talking about inflation. Congresswoman, inflation on a day-to-day basis, your pockets and mine, this just, I know I'm going to sound like a Gen Z, but it hits different.
Yeah. No, it absolutely does, Brian. And it hits the middle class. Mm-hmm. And so those of us that are about to send our kids back to school, going back to buy those school supplies, it's unbelievable how much you have to spend at the store to even send your kid back to school. But it's not just that. It's putting food on the table. It's filling your prescription, putting gas in your car. The price of gas is up 49% since President Biden took office. So they can say that inflation is coming down, but the middle class knows that that is not quite accurate because we are still seeing those high prices. And, Brian, I'm a single mom. And when I go to the grocery store and beef is double what it was 2 years ago, I'm second guessing having Taco Tuesday. It's tough on the pocketbook.
And the only problem there is what's your replacement? Everything else is just expensive too.
Yeah, I know it. So I guess we're just going to have beans,
Hey, Dave Ramsey would appreciate that answer.
Right.
Yeah. Top Ramen Tuesday is the new go-to, right?
That's right. Right.
We're talking with you were talking with Congresswoman Julia Letlow. So what are the answers here? Short term, long term. I mean, look, back to school shopping's going on right now. I mean, there's not a whole lot y'all could do to fix right now. But looking short term, long term, how do we work?
Yeah, well, we know that the solution is clear. The long-term game, we have to cut back on government spending to bring inflation down. I mean, that is just the clear answer. And so I take this seat that I was able to procure on appropriations very seriously because I have that power to watch every dollar that the federal government spends to lessen the burden on middle-class families like we're just talking about. I think another answer to this problem is domestic energy production. We know that energy is directly tied to inflation. We've made some headway in that regard, but we have a long way to go to undo the terrible policies that were put into place by this administration. But, I tell my constituents, just hang with us. There's hope at the end of the tunnel, and I'm confident that our better days are ahead.
Okay, so, and Congresswoman Julia Letlow's our guest. Okay, how do you tell folks hang on while at the same time they're looking at their Social Security running out?
Oh, gosh, Brian, this is an issue that I hear about everywhere I go. Thank you for bringing it up. So it's the WEP and GPO, the windfall elimination provision, government pension offset. I want people to hear me so clearly. If I can work on anything up here, I am championing this cause along with Congressman Garrett Graves. He's leading the charge with H.R. 82. But let me just, if you don't mind, tell you about Carla Moreau. She's one of thousands of stories that I hear from day in and day out. She wrote a letter telling me that she tragically lost her husband to cancer. He was 60 years old, and she went to apply for. He paid into all his Social Security quarters She goes in to try to receive his benefits as any spouse would, and was denied all of them simply because she was a public servant and she was a public school teacher her entire life. That is absolutely wrong. That is needs to be fixed. This is stealing hard-earned money from Americans. So we have to fix it. It's incumbent upon Congress to fix this. It affects over 2.5 million Americans, 49,000 alone in Louisiana. Again, it's stealing money that people have paid into a system. I'm working so hard, again, with Congressman Garrett Graves to get this across the finish line. I feel like we have a really good shot this time in Congress. I think we're close to 280 sponsors on H.R. 82. But I implore my constituents, please call every congressperson that you can possibly call if they haven't signed up on H.R. 82, because I want to get this across the finish line this Congress.
Congresswoman Julia Letlow. Congresswoman, I kind of want to wrap up with one more. I know you said it's in the hands of the courts right now, but I want to wrap up with one more on the potential new districts. How much,
Sure.
What level of involvement does your office have with contributing to make sure that that you already represent a portion of Louisiana, and part of that
Right.
representation is making sure they are represented. So what's
Correct.
your level of involvement? What's your responsibility in making sure that new maps serve them?
Yeah. Well, again, when it's tied up in the court's hands, I have very little involvement because it's in their hands. But what I can tell you is it's an absolute honor to represent all 24 parishes that I have the honor to represent. Again, this is not my seat. It's the people's seat, and it's an absolute honor to hear their voices day in and day out. I will continue to be their rural representative, represent their agriculture concerns, but also be the appropriator and making sure that I'm bringing that crucial funding, their tax dollars, back to the 5th District, back to Louisiana as a whole. So all I can tell you, Brian, is that it's an absolute honor to serve. I would love to continue as long as they'll have me.
Such an eloquent non-answer. No, I got to give you back a little bit there. She is Congresswoman
Sure.
Julia Letlow. No, I always appreciate the time. I do look forward to having you on a lot more often as well, and we will talk to you soon.
I would love that. Thank you for the time, Brian.